Hi guys, we are back for chapter 15, the final installment in our terrible typhoid Mary journey. Um, we actually still have the afterword, but the chunk of the book. This is the final chapter. Um, I'm excited to read it. Mary has now returned to Brother Island and is imprisoned again. So let's see how this story closes. Once again, Mary made a life for herself on North Brother Island. Once again, she had a cottage of her own, food, a small dog, and the freedom to walk around the island. Health officials described her as a moody, caged jungle cat. But despite her refusal to cooperate, Dr. William Halleck Park told the New Yorker journalist Stanley Walker they still tried to help her. Park described how they tried to cure Mary by injecting her with 5 or 6 different billion typhoid bacilli. Into Mary went a billion germs hypodermically, meaning with a needle, and they gave her pills containing the other billions. Afterward, Park learned that Mary hadn't taken the pills. She had hidden them and thrown them away. The doctors admit that this treatment was to have been an experiment. Said Walker, it might not have worked. The doctors also admitted that removing her gallbladder might not have cured her either. In some cases, surgery might have sent the germs into other organs, where they would have continued to breed. In any event, Mary didn't like the idea of having doctors tinker with her, concluded Mr. Walker. A weaker spirit than Mary's might have been broken. A less intelligent hospital staff might have ruined her. Mary may have been unfriendly and angry towards health officials and those responsible for her removal to North Brother Island. She may not have given Soper the information she wanted, but there were others with whom Mary did talk and whom she befriended. These people remembered her as a woman who was friendly as long as you didn't pry into her past. One man recalled that she made items out of beads, which she sold. For a long time, my mother had a choker of tiny blue beads that she had made, recalled George Eddington, whose mother worked as a waitress in the doctor's dining room. He also recalled that Mary baked cakes that she sold to women who worked on the island. It seems unlikely that the health department would have permitted Mary to bake cakes, but who knows? Perhaps Mary did bake cakes. Perhaps the women did buy them out of kindness or pity for the woman who had once made a good living as a cook. A cake is baked in a moderate oven, usually 350 degrees, and the temperature would have killed any typhoid germs. To fill her hours, Mary would read a great deal. She read such magazines as the Saturday Evening Post, Harper's, Good Housekeeping, and the Ladies' Home Journal. She enjoyed novels, especially the work of Charles Dickens. It was said that she never missed a reading of the New York Times. If she read the Times daily, Mary would have learned about the other healthy carriers who had infected far more people than she had. In 1922, a farm worker named Tony Labella was forbidden to handle food. When Labella ignored the health department's orders, he caused an outbreak of 87 typhoid cases, resulting in 2 deaths. He fled New York City and was found working in Newark, New Jersey, where he caused 35 more cases, resulting in 3 more deaths. After only 2 weeks of isolation, Labella was released. 6 other known carriers also fled New York City that year. In 1924, a bakery and a restaurant owner named Alphonse Coutels was a known carrier. The health department forbade the baker to handle food, yet he was caught red-handed preparing a strawberry shortcake. A judge found him guilty but suspended his sentence. I could not legally sentence this man to jail on account of his health, said the judge, but I want to feel in suspending sentence that the burden is to be on the Department of Health to exercise its police powers if it so thinks necessary. The Department of Health never followed up on Cotel's probation terms. In 1928, Mary may have met a Brooklyn confectioner sentence to Riverside Hospital after he infected 23 people. Frederick Mersch had been identified as a carrier 13 years earlier after a typhoid outbreak that infected 59 people was traced to his ice cream. At that time, the health department treated Mersch leniently, determining that he warranted special treatment because he had 4 children and a wife in poor health. He received the same medical treatment as Mary during her first quarantine, but was permitted to live at home. Like Mary, he was forbidden to handle food, and just as Mary had, he had violated his probation and returned to the confectionery business in 1928. Marsh left North Brother Island in 1944, but his years on the island gathered much less attention. No reporters tried to sneak photographs of him. No articles appeared in the newspapers. He wasn't called names such as Typhoid Frederick. Marsh worked as a hospital helper paid by the city at Riverside Hospital during his quarantine. After his release, the city trained Marsh and continued to employ him at a Brooklyn hospital. Like the other men who carried the disease, Marsh was treated differently from Mary by both the law and the newspapers. Mary continued to write violently threatening letters to Herman Biggs and Josephine Baker. To a reporter, Baker admitted that she felt uneasy after Mary had been released in 1910. During the years she was at large, that little doubt would stay in the back of my mind, said Baker. Though Mary lacked freedom, she made new friends and resumed friendships with others. Adelaide Offspring, the hospital nurse whom Mary had met in 1907, George Eddington's mother, who worked in the doctor's dining room, Adele Ledley, who became a loyal and longtime friend and with whom Mary corresponded, Tom Kane, a middle-aged man with an Irish accent who worked as a porter, the Lemp family, her longtime friends who lived on Long Island, and Father Michael Lucy, a Catholic priest. In 1918, Mary was offered work as a domestic at Riverside Hospital. She earned only about $20 a month, but it was something. That year, the health authorities began to permit her to take day trips off the island. On these occasions, a laboratory worker noted that Mary dressed fashionably, wore a hat, and carried a purse. On her day off, she shopped and visited friends, most likely the Lemp family, and later others. She always returned the same day, but she never told anyone where she went or with whom she visited. Always a reliable worker, Mary worked her way up from domestic to nurse to hospital helper over the next 7 years. In 1925, a new resident physician, Dr. Alexandra Plavska, arrived on the island to intern at the hospital. Plavska hired Mary as a laboratory assistant and taught her the fundamentals of laboratory work. Mary was never late. Each morning she climbed the stairs to the laboratory where she had her own desk and work area. For the most part, she prepared glass slides of specimens for the pathologist, kept records, and performed other necessary tasks such as bottle washing. For this reason, she earned about $50 a month. A month. The work was important to Mary, and the two women became close friends. It wasn't the same as making a pudding or a cake, but laboratory work was interesting to Mary. She was not brilliant, but she was thorough and careful, noted Stanley Walker in The New Yorker. Her mind was eager and alert. In 1927, Plavska completed her internship and left the island. Mary missed her friend, but often visited her and her young daughter Julie, bringing small gifts and staying for dinner. She was a part of the family, and we really loved her, said Julie. To me, she was wonderful, so I see her with loving eyes, an older person, but attractive, very warm and dear. She would always try and help in some way, doing a hem of a dress or something like that. After Mary left, Julie and her mother scrubbed and boiled the dishes. Mary would later describe Alexandra Plavska is a beautiful person who was always kind to her and who believed in her. As Julie Plavska said, it's a horrible thing because it wasn't her fault. She didn't put poison in the food. She just put a little of her bacteria. On September 23rd, 1932, Mary turned 63. 2.5 months later, on December 4th, Mary didn't show up for work. She was always there practically before I opened the place waiting for me, recalled Emma Goldberg Sherman, who worked as a bacteriologist in the hospital laboratory. Concerned, Sherman left the lab and hurried to Mary's cottage. She knocked and knocked, and when Mary didn't answer, she opened the door. The cottage was dark, its curtains were drawn, and it smelled bad and was in disarray. Miss Mallon, Sherman called. She heard a loud moan. Mary was laying on the floor, unable to move, paralyzed on her right side. She had suffered a stroke. Mary was taken to the children's ward in Riverside Hospital, where she would remain bedridden and hospitalized for the next 6 years. Alexandra and Julie Plavska continued to visit her. Even though she had a stroke, she did recognize us, said Julie. She just couldn't move and so on, and it was one of those things where you felt maybe she was not alone in the world, which was a very bad thing. Father Michael Lucy and the Limp family visited too, traveling by ferry across the East River to sit by Mary's bedside and keep her company. On September 23, 1938, nearly 6 years after the stroke, Mary turned 69. 6 weeks later, she took a turn for the worse. She had pneumonia. Adelaide Jane Offspring no longer lived and worked on the island, but she returned to care for her friend. Just after midnight on November 11, 1938, Mary passed away. For the last time, Mary Mallon left North Brother Island. Her casket was ferried across the East River and taken to St. Luke's Roman Catholic Church in the Bronx, where her funeral mass was held. 9 mourners attended the funeral. Reporters flocked to the church. They followed the mourners in the hearse to St. Raymond's Cemetery, where Mary was laid to rest. Honoring her privacy, Mary's friends refused to identify themselves to the reporters present. Alexandra Plavska and her daughter were among the mourners. I remember the ceremony and the loneliness of it, recalled Julie years later. We all need someone, and I think my mother answered her, Mary's needs, and that she was missing, it most of her life. The end. And there's her headstone. So, I will do another short video with the afterword. Man, that's not how I thought this was going to end. I wanted her to go on some, raging rampage and, I don't know, do something crazy. But I guess she settled down and lost some of her fire after fighting for so long and decided that she wasn't going to fight anymore and spent the rest of her days on the island and got to read the newspaper about all the other people that weren't being treated the same way that she was, even though they did the exact same things. But it's good that she did have some close friends and some people that she could talk to. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the book as much as I did. I will do the afterward video for it, so stay tuned if you want to hear the closing remarks. Bye.